Hi, BookTube. Welcome to Jackie's Literary Corner. I am Jackie, and it's time for the end of the year book tag. So it is November, in like halfway through November, and then we have one more month to go, and then we are done, and we are going into 2026. And I don't know if it's because so much is going on in the world that's not great, but or if just because I'm now one of the older people, I'm in my 30s now, but it just seems like the world is going by the years are going by so fast. Like, it felt like it was just January, and then now it's November. It's such a weird phenomenon. Like, everybody always says, whenever, and before we moved here, I didn't interact with people outside of my family and friends and, people I would see at school or somewhere or like out in public. But now, because I work at a grocery store, I'm interacting with a lot of different people, all these different customers, and getting to know them too in those brief, 5 minutes or whatever. And I notice that people, and maybe that's part of the reason why, but whenever I interact with people, they always say, I cannot believe the year's almost over. I mean, I do see that in social media too, like in people's YouTube videos, but it's just it's such a weird thing that universally everyone agrees that the years go by so fast. At least the adults. Like, kids don't say that. But anyway, so this is the end of the yearbook tag for the end of 2025. And you guys know the drill. I get a series of questions that I answer that have to do with the topic, in this case, the end of the year. And all my answers are book answers, obviously. Okay, so question number 1. Are there any books you started this year that you need to finish? And maybe I shouldn't pick this one because I'm probably not going to finish it. But I said Wall of Storms by Ken Liu. This is the second book, The Dandelion Dynasty, and I read the first book last May, I think it was, and I absolutely loved it. I'm one of those people I thought the way they told the story was really cool and interesting, and I was ready to jump into book 2, and I did start it. I mean, I've read a chunk of it already, and it is very different the way this one is told. It's a little slower. It's not as folktale told. It's not the same kind of narration as the previous book. Or the previous book, it felt like you were being told the story of these two guys and how one of them becomes emperor. But this one, it really zeroes in on the family. And I liked it so far. I've just made the mistake of putting it down and not coming back to it because it's a big book. It's a lot longer. It's a bit longer than the first book. It is about, let's see, how many pages? 852 pages. But it does help. Once I get started in a fantasy book, it doesn't bother me as much, the length. I used to read like really chunky books back in the day before BookTube, before I got involved. Like, I read the Dragonlance series, all those books. Now, granted, those are not like in the 800 page mark, but they're still chunky. At least I don't think so. I have to double check, and I do not have them anymore. So I read like Harry Potter, each book consecutively longer, and there were other books too. Like, I read Sarah J. Maas's first 2 series. But anyway, so, I mean, I probably shouldn't say that because then I'm definitely jinxing myself, but I don't know if I'll get this done or not. But yeah, I need to get this done before the end. I should say I would like to get this done before the end of the year. Okay, question number 2. Do you have an autumnal book to transition into the end of the year? Now, originally I was going to give 2 answers for the first book, for the first question, I mean. But then I thought this would be a good answer for question number 2, the autumnal book to transition into into winter, into the end of the year. And so I ended up picking, and that is The Devils by Joe Abercrombie. I read one of his first trilogies, starting with The Blade itself. And I did like that trilogy. I want to get back into Joe Abercrombie and continue, but I got impatient and did not get around. I don't know why I do this, where I'll start something, a series, and enjoy it, but then if I don't have the next book right away to jump into, then I get distracted by other books and don't want to go buying it. I mean, if it wasn't so costly at Books A Million, then I would get them. A bunch of, like, if it was the same price as at, the Outpost Bookshop, then maybe I would buy it there. But if I did see one of the books from his that's part of that whole world, but I ended up not getting it because by then I was into other stuff. But anyway, so I'm going to use this to transition back into Joe Abercrombie. And this is a monk. And he's looking for a holy relic, I think. Or he's going on assignment to a holy city. And he has to work with a bunch of people that, says, unrepentant murderers, practitioners of ghastly magic, and outright monsters. And it just didn't seem like, because it seems kind of creepy and scary, but then also is a bit of a fantasy adventure story, and I think it just feels like one of those books that you could read in autumn and in winter time. So yeah, this is my transitional book. I was originally going to say The Terror, which I got recently, and which is a true story. But then that's more wintry anyway because of its setting. It's definitely more of a winter book. Well, this one could go with both seasons. And then, okay, so question number 3. Is there a new release you're still waiting for? And yes, Catabasis by R.F. Kuang. I am so excited for that book. I have heard some people not loving that book, but I've loved all of her books so far. And I'm still very excited. And also, like, I do have that one. Catabasis is a retelling of Dante's Inferno or Divine Comedy, and I do have that one. I have a portable version of that one. Basically, it's the Divine Comedy, all the both Purgatorio and Paradiso, and then Inferno on one book. But there also has another book that he wrote to his muse, his lover, a poem he wrote to her in one book. So I'm thinking about reading that one before I read Catabasis, because her Catabasis retelling of that, I mean, I'm sure there are people that will say, oh, you don't have to read it, you can still enjoy this, but I want to reread it. I mean, I want to read that one, which that is one of the books I do need to get back to anyway, so I have a good motivation. At least I hope it's good. But I'm really excited, and I have seen it. I finally saw it at Books A Million yesterday, but I ended up not getting it because it is a hardback, and I try not to get hardbacks too often, especially at the Country Bookshop or Books A Million. But sometimes I have broken rules, like I got The Devils, for instance, at the Country Bookshop. But I do have it on my wish list, so maybe I'm hoping to get it for Christmas. But anyway, so yep, that is the book that I'm still waiting for, that I'm excited. It has come out, like I said, but I am still waiting for it to get it. Anyway, okay, so that is question number 3. Question number 4. What are 3 books you want to read before the end of the year? So first we have, and I talked about this, 2 of these books on my video about Pile of Possibilities for the rest of the year. This is West with Giraffes. So my dad's friend's wife bought this for me, and I got it in August. I think we met with them, and she gave it to me. And I have been meaning to get to it. I still have not, and I even plan to write a thank you note to show how much of my appreciation and that she bought me. She actually bought me this book, and like I said, I haven't read it yet, and this probably is more of a summer read, but either way, I need to read it so I can let her know, thank her and tell her if I enjoy it. I mean, I won't tell her if I didn't enjoy it, but to read it so that I can confidently, tell her how much I appreciate it. Because it wouldn't be right to write in the unit even if I haven't read it yet. Especially at this point. And then we have, so most people know Philippa Gregory's book series on the Tudor, the Henry's Wives, but I want to, when I was inspired to get back into this time in history, because when Philippa Gregory's books came out and they adapted her version of Anne Boleyn's story, I wasn't as into it, but I did like historical fiction. So I had read The Constant Princess, which was the book about Catherine of Aragon by her, and then I was all set to read The Other Boleyn Girl, but then the movie came out and I saw the movie first, and at that time I was like, oh, I don't need to read the book, I watched the movie. And I know that's blasphemous for a reader to say, but that's how I thought at the time. And sometimes I'm still like that, and if I've watched I'm not as pushed to, which is why nowadays I try to read the book first. Because sometimes there are times when I'm not as motivated because I'm like, I still in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, I don't need to read the book. But anyway, so I recently got back into this time period, and I, at the time I was thinking, because I had heard some stuff, how a lot of people didn't entirely love Philippa Gregory and her take on things, and I mean, I remember liking her Constant Princess, that story and everything. But then I was like, I kind of want to come at it from a different author's POV. So I heard about Alison Weir probably from Shelley Swearigan, who was, she likes historical fiction, she enjoys historical fiction. And so I found her book, Catherine of Aragon, at the Outpost Bookshop, and I bought it. And I very much enjoyed it, so I was like, I want to read her Six Tudors Queens series. And I have the third one, the one about Jane Seymour, I think, and who was Henry's third wife and was the father of his son Edward, his only boy he had. But this is the mother of Queen Elizabeth I. And I don't want to make the same mistake I did with The Other Boleyn Girl, where I was going to read it, but then I decided, oh, I don't need to read it, and lost interest. Now, as I say, as I've talked about this before, I am more interested in this period in history, so I'm more motivated to pick it up. So yeah, I need to read this before the end of the year. So that is Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsession. And then the last book, so this was originally not going to be the last one, but the third one, but then I remembered that this is one of the books that I got at BJ's the other day, or not the other day, but a few months ago, so I was like, I've been meaning to read this one, and I was thinking about reading it for October because of the premise. It's like, oh yeah, so maybe I should make that one the third one that I need to read before the end of the year. This is All the Colors of the Dark by Chris Chalk. This is a bit historical because it first starts in the 70s. This boy named Patch rescues this girl from getting Patch discovers the life. She saves the life of a wealthy family's daughter, and it's about obsession and hope and love, and I thought it would be good for this time of year, but now the autumnal season is almost over. So, I mean, this would also be a great read for probably for transition wise. But I need to get to, I've been meaning to get to it. And it's also, like I said, I want to read some of these books that I've gotten at other places like Walmart or BJ's, so that I can, read them and decide, do I want to keep them or do I want to donate them? Because sometimes books that are there are not necessarily, they're going to be the best sellers or the popular books that there's no guarantee I'm going to love them. Even though they are bestsellers and they're very popular, I'm not saying, I'm not like other readers. I don't read popular books. Like, I'm not saying that. But sometimes this, just because the book is popular doesn't mean you're going to necessarily love it. But anyway, so these are the 3 books that I wanted to try to get to before the end of the year. West with Giraffes. Anne Boleyn, A King's Obsessions by Alison Weir. This one is by Linda Rutledge. And then All the Colors of the Dark by, I keep saying In the Dark, but it's actually Of the Dark by Chris Chalk. Or Chris, what? Okay, I think I was thinking of Chris Chalk because the Welcome to Derry series, which I gotta watch that next episode. But Chris Whitaker. Okay, and then we have question number 5. Or number 5 is there a book you think could still shock you and become your favorite book of the year? I always have trouble answering this question, but I did come up with an answer, and it's also an excuse to talk about this book. And that is The Leopard by Giuseppe di Lampedusa. Sorry, I don't, again, just like Japanese and Russian, I don't know the Italian. But this is a book I heard about on one of the first podcasts I listened to that was about literature, discussing literature. And they only did 1 season, sadly, but they were talking about 10 works of literature and discussing what they, in their opinion, are some of the best ones. I mean, I think there are so many books that they could have discussed a lot more. In fact, they were the ones that got me to read Heart of Darkness, try that one, and surprisingly, there were a few others that I had actually already read, and one of them was Pride and Prejudice. And they talked about this one in an episode, and I was not sure how I was going to feel about it, if I was going to be interested. But I went to listen to all their episodes, so they brought up this one. This is about the Italian aristocracy and those guys and when they fell apart. And like, it's kind of like, War and Peace and Anna Karenina, what happened to the Anastasia's family and everything, and that whole history. Only this is the Italian side of the Italian people. And it sounded so, the way these guys talked about it sounded so interesting and so fascinating. So I bought it, and online, and I haven't read it yet, but it sounded so good. Like, I like stories about royals and, in the past. Not like those kind of, like, some of those contemporary romances. I'm not talking about those. I'm talking about the ones that talk about those families that have their rise and fall in society. Those kinds of stories. And the question is, do you think it could still shock me? Well, yeah, I think, maybe. Maybe it could. But we will see. And then the last question is, have you made plans for 2026? And yeah, I've started thinking about that. There are things like I want to start going to the library in person again. It's just, I'm really struggling with that because it's like when I go check out books from the library, I'm like, okay, I gotta read those so I can return them. And it just drives me crazy because I'm like, but I have to finish those, so I'm not reading my books I've spent the money on, and there's other thing, so I keep trying to find the perfect moment to go back to the library, and because I do want to support libraries. And then also, I want to continue to work on my goals, like reading Asian literature, particularly Filipino literature, and reading books that kind of intimidate me, that feel like they're going to be a challenge for me to read. And I still want to continue with this project of reading books about the Tudors and the Plantagenets as well. I want to read poetry and short stories and like stuff like that. I want to get back into that kind of stuff and to establish a routine so that I make it a habit. But I'm still kind of thinking it over and working on it. I mean, I have started reading poetry. Like, I'm reading through my Bronte sisters collection of poems every morning, and I am still reading along with the Bible, my Bible entries. So yeah, that's really what's, I'm just thinking about that kind of stuff and planning those things and for next year. But anyway, so if you want to, feel free to consider yourselves tagged and do this tag. And it's a fun tag to kind of start thinking about your end of the year plans, only if you want to. And I hope you are enjoying your reading, and I will talk to you all later. All right, bye.